Hi, Tracy here, and welcome to sunny Sussex in England. It's Veranda Makeover time, and this week we are going to be painting, we're going to be making, recycling, upcycling, repurposing. There's so much going on. You joined me partway through my veranda makeover. Now, all the boring stuff has been done, all the cleaning, all the repainting, painting white, really exciting stuff, along with painting grey. Now, I do get asked which paints I use. So for the veranda floor, I use a masonry paint, and for the white and the grey, I use this product, Superdec. I've brought the table back on. Now, last year I transformed this. I gave it a sand down and loved the effect. So I finished it off with white oil stain that I wiped on and then brushed over top oil. And I'm pleased to report it's wearing very well. Now, down to my storage unit where we're going to hunt out some chairs. I was using these high back dining room chairs on it, and I just fancy a change. They are too tall, and also when I tried to sand them back, they were covered in black paint underneath, which is not the look and feel I'm going for. So I'm rounding up all my odd chairs. I think I paid about £5 or a couple of pounds for these, and I've been collecting them over the years. Now I've got two that are absolutely fine. They're good to go. These four I'm going to sand down and reupholster the seats. If you're new here, this is Bertie, my furry supervisor. As I start to take off the old fabric, I came across this one, this orange floral that I haven't used for years, and I actually really love it. So I think I'm going to keep two of the pads in this fabric and then use another fabric to cover the remainder. This one, that is going to get covered. I'm going to use this fabric. I've used it before in the kitchen, and I like to have quite a few of the seat pads all the same, and that means that I can keep switching the chairs around. So the staple gun has come out. This is the one I love to use, along with the Scotch Guard. Brilliant, just for keeping the worst of the dirt and the wear off. These are the tools that I use, just a hammer, decorator's tool, an old screwdriver and some pliers. The staple gun is great. It's the best one I've ever used. I'll link it below, and then I'll just give them a final blast with the Scotch Guard, and then we can pop them onto the veranda. We need to revamp some more pieces for the veranda, so we're going to do some painting. And no, it's not white, it's Capability Green. I'm going to use it in three different ways. The first way is on this coffee table. Now, this was sealed in wax, and wax is not good outside. So I'm going to sand that top down, but the underneath has worn very well. So I'm going to leave that as is, and I think it will provide a nice contrast to the green. The supervisor is in position, so let's get started. After sanding, I just give it a good wash down, just normal soap and water. So the Annie Sloan Capability Green, this is the first time I have used this colour. It's actually a new colour in her range. So this time I'm going to do just a wash. So I'm taking out a very small amount of paint and mixing it pretty much 50-50 with water. But then I've got my spray bottle as well. So at any point in time that I feel that there is too much paint, I just spritz with the water, pull the brush back through, and then take off the surplus paint with a rag. I would call this effect not so much a wash, but more of a stain, as there are no brush or rag marks in it. It's just a block colour. Now I am going to seal this with clear matte lacquer. Lacquer performs in a different way to paint. Now, I do have a video where I've gone into great depths about how to use this lacquer, so I will link that below in the description box for you if it's something you're interested in maybe using at some point in time. One thing to bear in mind though is that it will always, the wax, the lacquer will always make the chalk paint look slightly darker. So your finished colour is always going to be darker than what you started with. I'm going to do 2 thin coats of the lacquer on the table and then leave it to dry overnight. Now, this is the next piece we're going to work on. So this is a super cheap pine bookcase. I used it to house some CCTV equipment years ago, you know, when it was all big and bulky, hence the holes. I'm going to cover those up with these pipe covers. Now, I've used these all around the house for the copper pipes coming up out of the radiators, out of the floor. I've just stuck those with wood glue on the back. I've taken the shelves out and now we're good to paint. As always, I use tin foil in my tray, saves on the clearing up. And I love these microfiber rollers at the moment. I'm going to use just a small brush for cutting in. And of course, with the rollers, rinse and spin before you begin. It just helps to remove any loose fibers and stops them getting into your paintwork. The Annie Sloan chalk paint does give great coverage. I mean, you can see here just the first pass, and it really is a good, strong coverage. I am going to do 2 coats though in total. Now, you may notice right at the bottom there is a spatula tucked underneath. It was because I forgot to prop it up, and of course I'm coming down to the bottom and I need to roll around that edge. So I'm just leveraging it up ever so slightly so I can get the roller right the way across the bottom with a super neat edge. If you're a regular viewer, then you'll know that I love my whites, my taupes. I love neutrals. So why am I using green? Well, I love to inject a little bit of colour outside, not necessarily in the house. And we are surrounded by green. So it just seems a natural progression to go onto that colour. And I am going to treat green as a neutral. What do you think? Do you treat green as a neutral? So while I wait for that coat to dry, I don't want to be bothered rinsing out brushes and so on. So I wrap in cling film and then pop into a bag, and they're good. They stay nice and moist. One of the benefits of using chalk paint is that it dries so quickly, and the warmer the day, the faster it will dry. So after 2 coats, I'm really happy with the coverage. And before I go on with the lacquer, I'm actually going to do a little bit of distressing if the supervisor agrees. Yes, he does. So again, got the marker out and I'm literally going to just tickle that head over purely because I like that kind of finish. I'm also going to go over the whole piece with a sanding sponge, just by hand, a very fine one, and it just breaks that paint open slightly. Obviously, we're going to be using the varnish, the lacquer, so I need to vacuum off all the dust, 2 coats of the lacquer, and then we'll leave it overnight. For our third effect, we're back down at the storage shed, and I'm going to look for some accessories this time. I've chosen the candlesticks. Now, I've had these for years and years. Originally found them at HomeSense. I sprayed them white and then I used them out in the kitchen courtyard. So they have been absolutely exposed to the elements. So definitely time for a revamp. I'm stippling the paint over to create texture, and then I'm going to highlight that by using white wax. Time to start getting some things onto this veranda. Now, I'm going to start off with the rug. This is a rug that I already had. I bought it for my winter decorating, got it off Amazon. Quite often these are half price, and I've got to say it is perfect. It has not marked or aged through the winter. It's lasted really well, so I will link that below. It's definitely worth an investment in. This sofa I picked up for £40. It was actually a set with 2 armchairs. The wicker was coming away, so I dropped a bit of glue on it, but the cushions were great. Lovely, clean, neutral. Took the back ones off and it just looks fabulous. So I'm loving the way that is weathering down, and it works perfectly well in that spot. I've got these big old oak armchairs. They were an auction find. I sprayed them and then distressed them. And last year when I did my summer veranda, I distressed them even further, and they're just weathering lovely, but they are rather heavy. When I decorate a space, I treat it like I would painting a picture, working on a canvas. I don't do small detail right at the beginning. I like to get all my broad brushstrokes in. I like to get my big furniture pieces in and just keep layering up. So that is the way we're going to dress this today. I'm not going to lie, when I first put this paint on, I thought, oh wow, this is really bright. Is this a step too far for me? But now I've actually got it onto the veranda and against that white, I think it's working really well. It's really protected at the back of the veranda. There's no weather going to get to it, and I think it's going to live quite happily there. I love the pipe covers. I think they have worked a treat, and it means now that I can also just thread through any cables, as there is a socket right next to it, a double socket. So if I want to put any lamps or anything electrical on there, I've got that option. Well, you can't have a veranda, a porch without a rocking chair, can you? And this one is exactly 26 years old. I know that because my husband bought it for me when our son was born. I've had this little table for decades and it's been painted so many different times. Last year I just ran the sander over and started revealing all the colours, and that's what gave me the inspiration for what we're going to do today. Vintage potato chitting trays. I found a big batch of these some years ago and I use them time and time again all around the property. That's the main pieces on now, and I'm happy with that layout. So let's start layering up. I'm going to start with these 3 faux palms, and I'm going to say faux again because somebody messaged me and said those pots are way too small for palms that size. They're not real, honestly, they're fake. But they're actually really quite realistic looking, and they're surviving really well. I've had them for so many years now, super pleased with them. Why don't I have real? Because I kill everything. It gets really hot in this veranda and I'm not always around to water. Now I'm going to elevate them by putting them into these 3 baskets. If you saw my shop and haul last time, you will know this basket. I discovered it in a charity shop for just £20. Oh, be still my beating heart. Along with its pal, which originally was marked up at, I think it was 40, went down to 25, and in the end I got it for 20. Absolutely over the moon. Just love the shape of it. So I'm going to put a palm in there, although with its curved shape and wobbly bottom it could be a little bit tricky, but I'm sure we'll find a way around it. The third palm is going to go into this old log basket that I coloured up white some years ago. Now the big one, I think we'll start with that, and it will go in the corner behind the rocking chair. I want to raise the height of the palm, so I'm not just going to drop it straight into the basket. I'm going to use a couple of old containers in order to elevate that and then make it a big statement piece. To cover up the gaps and just to stabilise it, I'm using a couple of old sacks. As this basket is much smaller and already elevated on the 2 potato chitting trays, I don't need to put any additional containers in, but again, I will use some sacking around it. Right, on to the tricky dicky. So I've set these baskets, the two charity shop find baskets, at the back of the veranda because I may want to use them again in the house. Now, I've actually got an old bedspread here. It's a dark brown, so when you look through the wicker, you can't see anything. So if I just put white wadding, white padding in there, it would show through and it doesn't look very nice. So I am pushing this in, and then I'm taking old pillows that I'd saved in order to complete projects, you know, to use the stuffing, the filling in them, the feathers. And I'm just cramming them all in. I am not going to be using this through the winter months out here, so it's not going to go mouldy. It's not going to get wet, but it really is working and it's filling out, and the pot can sit really quite stably in there. Plus, it's freed up some storage in the house. And I don't want to waste the lid because I think it's super cute. So there's a little bit of the plant sticking out. I'm just going to hook the lid on there and it's like a jaunty hat. Next, we're going to bring out the fabrics. I don't want to bring any of the small accessories on yet because the fabrics do make quite a big statement. So once I get those into position, I can then work out how many accessories are needed to create the look and feel that I'm after. I'm going to reuse the yellow cushion covers that I bought at the end of last summer, ready for my autumn veranda, my fall decorating. And I love to reuse materials, reuse fabrics, and just use them in a different way. So the yellow works perfectly well for spring and summer. There's no need to go out and buy more. I'm loving the yellow, but I do think it needs another colour. Now, recently I found a charity shop that was doing everything for £1, and I found these green curtains. So I think there were 3 curtains there, and I got them all for £1 in total. And I thought they'd make great cushion covers with the yellow. But how to make cushion covers when you don't sew and you don't have a sewing machine? Now, if you saw my spring decorating video of the snug, you'll have seen me make cushion covers with tape. And I used a little bit of that fabric as a test run on the fabric that I was using in the snug. And I was super pleased with the way they turned out, because I've never done this before. Some lovely viewers said, why don't you just get a sewing machine? It's not that difficult. Watch a few YouTube videos and you'll be away. And I was looking for a sewing machine, and then I suddenly remembered I'd bought one for my daughter a few years ago. So I borrowed it back, long-term loan, and watched some YouTube videos, and it's amazing. This machine is brilliant if you're a beginner, so I'd highly recommend it. I started off, after I'd watched the videos, going over the ones that I'd done with the tape, just to make sure they were nice and secure and that I could use them outside. Then I have all this fabric, so I thought, right, we've got to watch some videos on how to make simple cushion covers, and I found some great ones. Now, most of the pads I had were 18 inches, which made the maths quite simple. A ruler that I picked up from the haul last time was actually 18 inches long, so that made life even simpler. I zigzagged all the way around my raw edges to stop fraying. Even got the hang of the reverse. Oh my gosh, I was flying. The maths were pretty simple too. So 18-inch square pads. So 18 I divided by 3, which is 6, times it by 2, which is 12. So I did one piece that was 18 by 18, which was the front cover. And then for the reverse, I did 2 18 by 12 and then just overlapped them. To try and maximise the use of the fabric, I used some of the existing edges, the sewn edges, where I possibly could. I also watched a great video on put your pins in with the head facing you away from the needle so they're easy to remove. Snip the corners and use a chopstick to poke them out. Genius! So of course my confidence grew and I decided to make lots more, and I kept experimenting, doing things in different ways. So I then decided to cut off seams and make my own. Then I decided that actually the fabric didn't look as though it was fraying. So why bother doing the zigzag? It's just a waste of cotton. So I just went into pinning straight away and then stitching, and they were coming out great. So there we go, for £1 and a reel of cotton. The thread actually costs more than the curtain fabric. I've got all these cushions and I've got another curtain left over, so I can make even more. As for the throws, I'm going to reuse what I already have. Just one more spot to add a little bit of fabric. Now all that's in position, I can step back and see exactly where I need to accessorize. And the first place I'm going to start is behind the palm on this little shelf. I'm using a charity shop find mirror that hubby found, a stone pot and a faux plant, again because I know I'll just kill real ones. And into that pot I'm going to put some walking sticks. If you're a regular, then you know I've got a bit of a cane addiction. Let's move to the next area, and that's below the mirror. This was an eBay find a few years ago. Again, chalk paint, distressed, and it's actually screwed into the cladding, so it's super safe. Now, I've got some old pasta jars. They were actually my daughter's when she was at university, and I've wrapped them with coir bean string. And there's 3 of them, so they always make a nice statement. I'm using some faux greenery in here. I found these 3 strands, £7.99 from HomeSense, and we don't get an awful lot of good faux greenery around here. So whenever I do see it, I jump on it. And I quite like these. I like the length of them, and I thought they would be very useful for the summer decorating. I do like to use the faux outside. I know it's counterintuitive. I use real plants inside, plants that are meant for outside. But that's just the way I roll, darlings, you know. I don't like the mess on the veranda, and as I say, I always forget to water them. And it gets very hot back here as well. We have cover here not for shade, but to trap the heat. We have such a temperate climate. We don't really get extremes of anything. So putting all these items out onto the veranda is perfectly safe here. You know, we don't get tornadoes and whirlwinds coming through. We don't have excessive amounts of rain, although quite frankly it has rained a lot just lately, but nothing too extreme. This is a window pane from my mother-in-law's house. I've got 2 of them, and you will have seen me do them in my haul video, my entryway video for spring. They were so well painted because she's really maintained her house very well. but I didn't really want that look. I wanted the chippy look. So I took the heat gun to it and stripped back the paint, and lo and behold, there was orange underneath. So I thought, actually, that is going to tie in beautifully with that orange fabric that was on the chair pads, if you remember earlier in the video. So we're just having a little pop of orange. I'm bringing out some orange toned books and a jug that I got in the shop and haul last time, and the rulers that I found. Now, one of the rulers has got some ready orange colouring writing on there. So again, just all these little nods, these little accents really help to pull a scheme together. I'm going to build on the basket theme by bringing a few more out to put onto this bookcase. Now, these were originally natural colour, and again, I've just sprayed them up. They've been up on here for some years now, since this bookcase first came on, and they work well. They just help to pull the height of the bookcase up. I'm going to keep this really quite simple and just run with a few pops of the green, the white and the natural colour. Over to the table now, and I'm going to add just a couple of sisal placemats. I've used these outside before and they've become slightly discoloured in the sun, but actually the tone works great with this design. And the two candelabras, candlesticks, are coming out. I'm not going to put candles in because they're just going to melt. So the candles will go in on an evening when we eat out here. To move down to this end of the veranda now and style all these surfaces. So starting off with the coffee table, I'm adding another of the sisal mats and a jug that I found. It was in my last video, my last shop and haul, for just £2. The carved wooden coasters were just £1 and they've got some lovely detail on them. I'm going to add some crockery as well that I picked up from auction. I've got a couple of these beautiful little dishes here, really summery vibes to them. And we are not quite finished with the basket theme. I've got a couple of pieces here that have been picked up in a job lot from auction. I don't want to put a basket in this corner because this is where the weather, if it is going to hit the veranda, it will hit there. So I've got this old copper bin with lid, but we don't need the lid. When I got this, it was super shiny, but I quite like it when it's full of that patina. And it's watertight, which means we can go out into the gardens and do some picking. It's wild garlic season and we have it growing in abundance here, and particularly down by the stream. A Labrador with his own private stream. Life doesn't get much better for the doggy. The cow parsley is just starting to come out, so I think we'll be having a few little snips of that. And also this conifer. Now I particularly like this one because I find it really interesting with the different tones in it. And of course the yellow and green will suit the veranda. And yes, I may well have gone OTT on my clippings here, but I just love the fullness of it, and it has a lemon scent which is wafting along the veranda. I've added the last few strands of the faux greenery just to complete the look. Thank you so much for joining me, and a special shout out to those lovely people who encouraged me to get a sewing machine, to watch some videos and have the confidence to get stuck in. So if you're holding back on something, don't. Give it a try. Throw yourself in. You never know what you might achieve. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care.